Welcome to the Higher Ed Jobs Podcast, Ask the Expert Edition. I'm Andy Hibble, the Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders of Higher Ed Jobs.
And I'm Kelly Sherwin, the Director of Editorial Strategy. Today we're happy to have Kathleen Hermacinski back with us. Kathleen is the Associate Vice President of Human Resources and Title IX Coordinator at Illinois Wesleyan University. She previously served as Director of Human Resources at Eureka College and is an active leader in Coupa HR, where she completed the Ignite program, and now serves as President-elect of the Illinois State Coupa HR Board. She also contributes to Higher Ed Jobs as a human resources expert and, as we know, a recurring podcast guest. Thank you, Kathleen, for coming back.
Thanks, Kelly. I always love to be here and to support Higher Ed Jobs.
So let's get into our question today. It's in the mental health area. How do you create a soundboard for an HR department when you are the go-to department for the institution? Kathleen, what are your thoughts on this?
That's a great question and something that not a lot of HR professionals want to admit out loud that they need a sounding board. When HR is the institutional fixer, the counselor, the voice or reason, it can feel like there's no place for HR to go, no space to think out loud, no ideas to safely test thoughts, or just to be a human for a moment. But creating a soundboard just isn't possible. It has to be essential for good decision-making and institutional sustainability for successful leadership. I want to think of a soundboard as layers and avenues and not just one person or one department. Starting with your own departmental culture, for us, we do daily tailgates. We're a smaller HR team that we have here, 6 of us total. We meet for about 20 to 30 minutes every morning to kind of discuss the ideas of the day, understand where the pain points are from across, and kind of have that internal soundboard. It creates a safe space to think out loud and challenge ideas and calibrate as a team. In addition to that, though, you have to have a sounding board beyond just your suite mates, if you'll say. Look to your peers across campus. HR works very closely, at least in my experience, with legal, finance, student and academic affairs, physical plant, and even IT. There's not really a section on campus that HR doesn't touch. So to understand the scope of the work and how those different departments bring a different lens, it's one that can challenge our assumptions, which is one main point we want a sounding board for, and broaden our thinking. We have to find those trusted people on campus who can do that for you and know that confidentiality is something to be considered. Trust has to be intentional, and your soundboard should include people who not only maintain confidentiality, but for me personally, think student-centered and institution-forward, and who are willing to respectfully, again, challenge. Those qualities matter more to me than just titles.
Kathleen, I love that idea of the daily tailgating. I'm assuming this is a little bit of like, how was your weekend, but then also you're talking about work issues and things like that and what to expect during the day. Yeah, and I like the fact that it doesn't matter if you could do it probably in person or, if there's people doing it remotely as well. So that works. I think that's an actionable suggestion that people can do and incorporate into their work life. So that's a great suggestion.
And for us, it's sometimes the tailgates take 45 minutes because there's a lot to sound off on. And sometimes they're less than 10 minutes because we talked about what Halloween candy we stole from our kids, a couple of months ago for that. So, but it also helps build culture. So not only is it a sounding board, but it also helps create team culture with that as well. It's also important to look to peers across campus. Human resources, at least in my experience, works very closely with legal, finance, student and academic affairs, physical plant, and even IT. There's not really a department on campus that HR doesn't have interactions with. It helps to understand the scope of their work and our work and helps to bring in a different lens, one that challenges our assumptions and broadens our thinking. Finding those trusted people on campus who can do that for you is a game changer for a soundboard. But trust has to be intentional. Your soundboard should include people who maintain confidentiality and, for me personally, are student-centered and institutional forward and who are willing to respectfully challenge me, my team, and the administration. Those qualities matter more than titles.
I think I'd like to jump in here on behalf of general counsels across the country. Confidentiality from a legal perspective, particularly since we're talking specifically about HR, is a very, very specific type of confidentiality. if you're in an HR office and you want to talk to academic affairs about something, you can do that with legal present when you're talking to your attorney. But if it's a conversation between you and academic affairs, there's parts where confidentiality may or may not be able to be maintained. So I would caution HR professionals that are out there in particularly legally sensitive matters to look at confidentiality, not through the lens of do you trust them not to speak, but through the lens of whether or not they'll be eventually legally required to speak or subject to other various, for public institutions, freedom of information laws or other things that are out there. So that would be one, particularly in an HR office. I just wanted to make sure to put that caveat out there for folks. I'm pretty sure most HR professionals get that, know that, live that. But just in case if you're folks out there that don't really know that really bright line does exist, it does, and it's there, and it's important for many different reasons.
Andy, you couldn't have phrased that better, because you can't have a soundboard without those clear boundaries. And so there needs to be a difference between venting and strategizing. And a soundboard is not necessarily a place to unload those confidential details or frustrations, but a place to process responsibly and like kind of making scenarios anonymous to protect those things, like to make sure you are maintaining confidentiality, you're not breaking information, but have a place that is the safe space to kind of high level scenarios and stuff through. Please do not talk about anything that's confidential, that for your institution and for yourself personally. Protect your reputation and your career on that one. So I thank you, Andy. I appreciate that.
And I love that you use the word strategy in that comment there. That's so important. Like you said, suggest like an anonymous, but then talk about high level strategy, which would be beneficial.
Think about your soundboard. That's a perfect segue. Think about your soundboard and how it can influence the campus ecosystem. When you build strong relationships across multiple departments, leaders feel seen, heard, and included in on the strategic processes that HR manages. That can create additional levers of influence for HR and can ultimately make a stronger partner in institutional decision making. So while HR needs the sounding board to flesh out our ideas and strategies and thoughts, it also is strategically interworking ourselves across the rest of campus to ascend HR to be that strategic thought partner across campus.
I'd also maybe take this a little bit more global than just HR, but very much applies to HR as well. And remembering that colleges and universities are centralized, decentralized organizations, meaning they're central service offices like HR, like academic affairs, but there's also this decentralized colleges within many universities or decentralized departments within colleges. When you're out there in one of those nooks and crannies of academia, you have peers across the country. And that's why places like Coupa HR or CASE or ACE. ACE is great for university presidents to be able to do that, or the Council of Independent Colleges. All those places are great places to build peers across the country that you can reach out to who are similarly situated. There are 6 people who do what you do on campus, Kathleen. That's not a lot of people, but there's thousands of them across the country. Build those relationships, rely on those people, and guess what? Celebrate what's one of the great unique things in life. I can guarantee you that the HR folks at Coke aren't calling the HR people at Pepsi and trading stories.
Absolutely not.
We do that. We do that freely. We do that in the pursuit of what all of our shared missions are in serving the folks of our communities. I think that that's a great thing to be celebrated in higher ed, and try to make that a part of what you do if you're in one of those centralized offices.
And to add to that, you mentioned professional networks. They're also invaluable in terms of sounding boards. They can offer a space where you can speak freely without institutional politics. And they sometimes can reduce the isolation that comes from, in my specific case, being in HR at a small to mid-sized institution. And so sometimes your clearest thinking can come from someone who isn't part of your daily landscape.
Well, and I know we talked about going to conferences and being a part of Coupa and things like that. And when I introduced your bio, you were part of the Ignite program. I'm assuming that was a great place for support and I don't think we should say having a soundboard is all about complaining, but also like finding joy in the life of a HR professional as well. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add about the like joining a cohort or other suggestions in professional development there.
I think anytime you can join a peer kind of cohort, like you mentioned, Ignite for me, our group chat from 4 years ago is still live and very active. I get to learn about a lot of HR trends across the country just from this group of 12 people. And anytime you can have some kind of meaningful relationship with a peer group, it's going to require some consistency and regular check ins. Um, but to your point, you don't want the soundboard to only be something you go to when something's on fire. Build those relationships and utilize them before you actually need them as well. So it's not just you want to be proactive, not reactive when it comes to if a sounding board has a negative connotation, like to your peers, to the people that you trust to bounce ideas off of.
Kathleen, you've been invited to attend the ACE or CIC national conferences, and you have a chance to sit down with university presidents and college presidents. What would your advice be to them about finding that soundboard in HR or other soundboards across the campus?
I think modeling that a leader can use a soundboard effectively can showcase other HR professionals and direct reports that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not know everything about everything. And that when you can work collectively together, everybody, including your institution, is better.
Thank you, Kathleen. It was a fantastic conversation we had today. We appreciate you joining us again.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you for listening. If you have questions for experts like Kathleen, please feel free to email us at podcast@higheredjobs.com or send us a direct message at X @higheredcareers. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to speaking again real soon.